This is option number one. I want to talk about this for a moment. Just hold it. We'll take it one at a time. Option number one, taking your artillery guns up, because we've already seen in the past, General Bakshi, mortar firing, heavy mortars being used. We've seen light artillery being used as well. This is the first step in the ladder of escalation. Using heavy artillery, taking it up, lining them up in pistol position, pounding Pakistan post. How do you look at option number one that's being put out in India today right now?
Rahul, very interesting. May I remind you that in the year of the Lord 2003, we had done precisely this, an artillery war, including Bofors, mediums, and we had primarily hit the Neelam Valley. Pakistan had cried uncle with Pervez Musharraf in charge. They had begged for a ceasefire. They had announced it themselves, unilateral ceasefire, because it had hurt, and that unilateral ceasefire lasted almost 15
I remember
years.
that time very well, General Sharma, where we opened the guns along the line of control. The artillery was displaying its full might. Pakistan crawling on its knees, requesting for a ceasefire. It lasted for a few years. It was a shambolic ceasefire, but Pakistan was bent on its knees. How do you look at option number one, General Sharma?
Yeah, it's an option which has been tried often earlier. It's been tried in 90s, it's been tried subsequently, and it is successful in many forms. Except that the bunkers on the opposite side are also as strong as they exist on our side, and it is a dual possible. Similar action can be carried on your opposite side. It is an action that they will be anticipating and they'll be prepared for, and we should be also be prepared for a similar action. So it's an obvious given option of getting artillery shells either to fire indirect or fire in, as you are saying, pistol round. This is an accepted method of doing
You're saying
things.
this is an accepted method. It's almost inevitable that between now and the next few days, this option will come into play. Option number two, moving up the escalation ladder even further. This was discussed post the 26/11 attacks, when at that time Air Chief Marshal Fali Major, who was Chief of the Air Staff, had suggested to Manmohan Singh that the Indian Air Force would use precision-guided ammunition from the Indian side of the line of control. So not crossing the LC, from the Indian side, using Sukhoi 30s or whichever fighter aircraft they pick, and pounding Pakistani positions. These could be tents, these could be army establishment, these could be terrorist hideouts, these could be training camps. So this is, something which is one step up and beyond what we've done, General Bakshi, but an option which doesn't involve risking the presence of our ground forces in Pakistan and yet exacting revenge. We can go after, based on intelligence from the research and analysis wing, against very specific targets inside Pakistan.
Absolutely, Rahul. In terms of escalation dynamics, this is one of the best options that is generally available. This is the option that the Israelis use very often. The United States has used it invariably as an almost standard response. And the fact of the matter is, you have precise intelligence. You can take out pinpoint high-value targets, like Dawood Ibrahim, like, the Lashkar-e-Toiba headquarters, like anyone. This is a very viable option, and this is an option that the Israelis use very often.
But India has always been reticent in calling its, if you look at India's military history, calling in the Air Force for all governments in the past has never been an option of the first recourse.
Yeah, the first is that you mentioned about taking a target out. With the kind of ranges we have available on the standoff weaponry, on firing from one side of the border, we can take up targets which are much in depth.
150 kilometers at least.
Yeah, so I didn't want to say the distances, let's leave it for the specialists. But there is a possibility of taking on targets that we know. The area where Jaish-e-Mohammed is there.
No, that means you can hypothetically pound Murid-ke. If the government decides you want to take down Hafiz Saeed, if you know specifically that Hafiz Saeed is at the Lashkar-e-Taiba headquarters at Murid-ke, using a Sukhoi 30 MKI, you can take out Hafiz Saeed.
It's possible to be done. It's possible to even take on, say, Bahawalpur, where
Jaish is. That's the Jaish headquarters.
So, it's possible to be done. So it's an expensive weaponry, but it's a damn good thing, and we must try it out in case it has to be done in a manner of this. And similar thing can be said to missiles also.